what I found in that using AI every day is I was able to create more time for myself by taking off those tasks that I procrastinate. There's a billion things, especially when it comes to work. I'm just like, oh, I just don't want to do that, or it's just kind of time consuming. It's not fun. It's not creative. And now I can use AI for those things and make more time for myself to be creative and artistic, which is amazing.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another powerful episode of the Creatives Journal podcast. My name is Andy. I am your host of MMG Design, and please welcome Mrs. Sydney Stern Miller. Sydney is awesome. I don't really know how to sum that up in any other word. A little bit of background on Sydney. She is the Digital Marketing Strategy Manager at Deloitte, but I came across her via LinkedIn because of her AI content, and that's what's going to be the primary value add that you get from this episode as a business owner. So if you're curious about getting into AI to level up your marketing strategy game, or just getting into it in general for using it to do tasks that are a little bit outside of your control, to buy back your own time, and also to have fun with it in the process, then this is the episode for you. So without further ado, a huge thank you for Sydney for coming onto the show. Might be one of the most value-packed episodes, along with genuine, great conversation that I've ever had in a show. So super grateful for her for coming on. We'll have to have her back on for round 2 at some point. But without further ado, let's get right on into it. I'm not going to hold it off any longer. Please welcome to the Creative Journal podcast, the one and only lovely Sydney Stern Miller. A lot of his headshots are AI generated. I think that started like a whole wave of the apps that people in the softwares, and they, can. I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell, but I can always sort of tell. Like, do you have any telltale signs if something for you, like, because you probably have a really good third eye for that kind of stuff?
I see it less with people's headshots and more with just like images that people generate. So in my experience, when I try to generate headshots for myself, they've all been a little off. And I think you'd only probably notice it if you knew me well, but it makes me look thinner. It made me like my hair longer. The teeth were different. Teeth are kind of a dead giveaway. And then hands, that's still something that it's just really struggling with. But when it comes to generated images that could be used for like stock photography, it's getting harder and harder. I get the Midjourney magazine every month. I don't know if it's a $4 magazine. It's amazing. And it basically just does this compilation of images that people have been generating and the highest rated. So people will rank them on yes, I like this, or no, I don't. And so then they put them in the magazine, and it's been a wild experiment because we've kind of been around since the beginning to see the differences in the images at the beginning, a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, to the images now. They're stellar. It's just getting so much harder to tell. But I do think that the biggest giveaways are always going to be teeth, hands, feet. And then as we move into more video content, they're turning images into video, the same is true. The transitions are very clunky.
Yeah. Is it kind of training off of and I've seen it too, but I saw this meme, the first ever AI generated video, it was of Will Smith. And it was from, I forget what movie it was from, but it was so bad. It was comically bad. It looked like his face in Hitch after he got stung by that bee.
Yeah.
But
Great.
And so there people were making memes about that, but that was a year or 2 years ago. And so is it training it off of its past versions of what it's already made, from an image standpoint? So that's why it's getting stronger, or
I'm certainly not an expert in it, but not dissimilar to any other app. They come out with fixes and version updates. So if something is not working and they continue to see that as a trend, they certainly try to address that to make those things better. And so who's really two of my favorite creators on AI image generation and video generation are Rory Flynn and Drew Bruckner. Those two gentlemen are incredible, and they always give the most plain language updates to what's going on. But recently, I think a couple of the things they've been working on, Midjourney has been working on, is upscaling. So if you think, and I didn't really know what that meant at first, but when you generate an image, it's going to be a certain resolution. So kind of, if you're in the game of marketing, high resolution is key. It's
Right.
critical to making sure that, we can post it on the sites we need to post it on and it's not going to look blurry. And so they're working on continuously giving a higher image resolution and a higher upscale ranking, which is nice. I would eventually love to print a couple of my own photos and frame them in my house from generating images. I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, that would be cool. Have you played around with the difference between the browser version of Midjourney versus because I remember it was right after it started, I went down the rabbit hole of starting to learn it in the Discord, and I was like, this is such a pain in the ass to use. I'm getting ADHD just with all these chats popping up. I was like, am I doing this right? Or
I hear you.
so I kind of lost interest in it, but then they have the browser version of it. I forget what's the name of the browser version?
I think
Loop or
now you can reroute it directly through. Well, I think you still have to have a Discord login, but if you go into midjourney.com, it will take you into this new kind of platform that doesn't look like what you were talking about, the Discord, kind of chaotic feed. But I agree with you. That's what took me so long to get into image generation was I started on Discord and I was like, and I had never been on Discord before. Not really. I had just watched a couple of things. And the learning curve of knowing what to type when, and then the constant influx from other people. Yeah. But you can set it so that you're communicating with the Midjourney bot directly and you're not communicating in those group chats. So that is a little tiny hack. And that way, it's basically a text message going with Midjourney in Discord. So you can just communicate with it directly, search all of your previous stuff, and you don't have to search through everyone else's.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I can send you that tip of how to set it up, because I think you just have to do /settings, and then I'll find the right link for you. That was a
game. So that would be. Have you made a piece of content on that before? I must have missed it.
No, I actually haven't. I don't do a ton on image generation, educating people on image generation, just because I think there's people doing it better than me. But my favorite thing to share is when I get really hilarious hallucinations, just because they're so absurd.
Yeah, I see. You post those every week, don't you?
I try to, yeah. It's kind of fallen off in the parenting summer debacle, but coming back.
Yeah. School's I understand. How did... Yeah, this is typical parent nowadays. My mom's she's constantly happy now because I'm always out of the house. But so that kind of is a good segue. How did you get into starting content? Was it just kind of a natural curiosity? Because I know it's not with anybody, it's not your full-time job. So how do you how did you get started in content? I know you have a great niche in AI, you have great branding.
Thank you.
But yeah, how did you kind of get started, and what's your approach to it nowadays? Is it more for fun, or is it something you're trying to pursue long term?
Yeah, I think the truth is probably multifaceted. One, my love language is helping people. I do love to help people, and I only have so much time, available to do one-on-one feedbacks. There was last summer I had 5 interns, and I felt so excited by them. They refreshed my enthusiasm for working, because I've been in the professional workforce 15 years and they were brand new. And so really what I could give them was so valuable, but I couldn't do that on a massive scale. But I was all of this advice that I'm sharing, I could be giving to people on the internet. And if it's a value, then it's a value. And if not, no harm done. So I think that was the first thought I had. And then what solidified it into creating content was I have been laid off in the past. I've been laid off twice. And in this job market, I think it's a lot harder to get roles. And I don't think I'm at risk of getting laid off again, but I think it's smart for everyone to be mindful and keep their resume up to date, and to just make sure that, you're taking care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, that's the only person that's going to take care of you. And so about a year ago, it was October of last year, I was like, you know what, I'm going to build a personal brand for myself on LinkedIn as a professional. And I don't want it to always be about my face. I don't want to be an influencer for my personality, but I do think I have some things to offer that could help folks that are coming up in their career. And as I was thinking about my differentiator, because marketing is one thing and I have some HR experience too, but I also had been learning AI, and I started learning AI because I was scared it was going to take my job. So again, this is all kind of fear-based. I was worried I was going to lose my job. I was worried that AI was going to take over marketing. And so my methodology when it comes to anything scary is know your enemy. And that started a long time ago with cockroaches, like, and spiders, right? Like, I didn't like them, but I felt better, like, the more that I knew, right? Like, the more information I have, the better I feel in dealing with them in real life. And that is true also for AI. Like, the more I learned about it, I will not compare AI to cockroaches and spiders because it's not scary. The more
I see
I
it though.
learned it, yeah, the more I learned it and the more that I used it, I was like, "Oh, this is incredible." I felt, because I'm an ADHD, uh, I'm like ADHD, so I've got all the neurodivergence, and what I found in that using AI every day is I was able to create more time for myself by taking off those tasks that I procrastinate. There's a billion things, especially when it comes to work. I'm just like, oh, I just don't want to do that, or it's just kind of time consuming. It's not fun. It's not creative. And now I can use AI for those things and make more time for myself to be creative and artistic, which is amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's like the biggest disconnect is like people hear like how beneficial it is, and you can kind of see from the outside. But then there's like, and it's like with anything, it's like that moment of there's like the friction of getting started, and then you don't really know. It's like, okay, I'm spending more time writing like this prompt or learning how to use a software rather than, everything is instant. And I think that's kind of reflected of like the world like we live in nowadays is that um, it's like AI is sold and marketed as, and there's the general conception that it is going to do everything for you. Um, but if you don't have like the knowledge and the like literally the inputs to give it to do the right thing, um, that's tough. So like, where was your first kind of destination to go to educate yourself and learn how the cockroach works?
Yeah. So, oh, I feel so bad. I've given AI the cockroach title, but I would say the first place I always go is Coursera, which is a free online course platform. It is how I reskilled myself into marketing. I graduated with a degree in marketing, but I went to work in HR for 6, 7 years. And so when I wanted to come back into marketing, that's where I went. And I honest, in all truth, like 2 courses there, and I was able to transition back into marketing into a role
Oh,
that was commensurate with like my years of experience. I didn't have to start over, which was awesome. So because of that experience, I went to Coursera. I looked up some AI courses, and there are two. I could give you the name of them, but I want to say one is from Deep Learning AI, and it was probably like introductory, prompting for AI. And another one, I'll have to get you the name of it. I think it's from the University of Michigan, but there were just two kind of intro level courses.
okay. So
And
they weren't like marketing specific courses then.
no, because
Okay.
I don't actually think marketing is something that most people, like, how to do that. It's more of like just getting over the hump of learning how to use AI, because really it's nothing more. Like, I think the biggest aha moment I had was the biggest difference between AI is like retraining my brain from the Google mindset. When I go to Google, and this is a real example, this is like kind of what changed my opinion. I needed to create a YouTube strategy. I had never created a YouTube strategy for my company before. But I mean, in my mind, nothing's rocket science. Normally I would have gone to Google and been like, hey, how do I create a YouTube strategy or a YouTube strategy template? And you're kind of beholden to whoever's ranking top on Google. And like a lot of times it's not great, but they're certainly not going to help you build the strategy yourself. Whereas if you go to AI, ChatGPT is my weapon of choice. Typically, I'll be like, hey, I want you to act as a, marketer with 30 years of experience. We're working for, my company is Deloitte, and I need your help building YouTube strategy. And that is where I saw this like behemoth of, great, this is your step-by-step of where you need to go and what you need to do next. But then it gets better. Then you can be like, great, let's start with step 1 and work together to build this out. And then let's go to step 2, and then let's go to step 3. And then before I knew it, within a week, I had this like really beautiful YouTube strategy that I had iterated. Essentially, like, it felt like I was working with someone else who had a lot more experience than I did. And I was able to present it, and everybody liked it, and we moved forward on it. And so I think the time to launch new ideas, new projects just exponentially got a lot faster for me. And I realized the value in being able to use AI versus using Google for things that required multiple steps.
Yeah. What's that biggest? That was really good. What's that biggest disconnect? How can people kind of transition the the default mode of Google search? Because I know like when I go in to type into Google search, I have a certain mindset that I'm in. I'm like, what's the biggest disconnect? How can you kind of train yourself to, first of all, what are the biggest differences between a chatbot like ChatGPT or Claude and like Google? Like, what's the mental approach difference for you?
Yeah, well, I think they're eventually going to be more and more similar. I mean, even now with Google, like you're going to get the AI summaries up top. So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm going to say to you today is probably going to be different in a month or 2 months. But for now, I would say the most helpful thing that really helped me to retrain how I think and how I act is asking ChatGPT or whatever your AI tool of choice is one question every single day. And that was my commitment. I was like, before I go to bed every day, I'm asking it one question. So sometimes during the day, I'd be like, oh, like I want to research this medication that my doctor told me I'm going to be on, and let's talk to AI about it. And I was like, oh, and that was like a learning moment. And then the next day, I was like, I don't have anything to ask ChatGPT. Let's see if my daughter has anything that wants to ask. And so I would start to ask much more like personal questions and realize the value of what would give back. Or like if I was having a challenge with my daughter in potty training, I would say, hey, act as a childhood psychologist. This is what's going on. Can you talk me through ways that I can talk to my daughter about this? And it really like that question a day helped me to be like, okay, there is so much value in this. And then I wanted to use ChatGPT more. So, I guess the alternative would be like stop using Google, like take it off your phone or take off the Google search and like only use ChatGPT for a week. But either way, just like build the habit, and a habit takes 21 days. Building the
Mm-hmm.
habit of using it every day and making it one of your go-to apps, I think is probably the biggest learning curve. And then it just becomes natural because it proves its own value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good. I mean, James Clear talks about like the habits, but also like reducing the friction to getting into using something. I think not a lot of people. I know a lot of people, but not a lot of people I know like you actually use the app. It's more of a desktop default,
Mm-hmm.
and that's. I mean, I could obviously. I'm thinking I could change it to like a Chrome extension or a bookmark. Or there's also I've done too a couple things from what you said too. If you go in and ask one every day, you can save your past chats. That would be a good way to kind of reference and see your progress. And you can also build off the past ones.
Yeah,
But
it's
another
really.
one too is yeah, I use Arc browser
Mhm.
and it's awesome.
I don't know what
But you
ARC
can
is. Tell me a bit more. Yeah.
so Arc is it's ARC. It's like a Chrome alternative, but it has like inbuilt AI sort of things, and I had so many reservations about switching over from Chrome because it's like okay, like 15 years I've been using
Right.
Chrome, and
Just
I'm
have it.
like, yeah. So it has like its signature is like the sidebar, and you can also minimize out of it, so you get like a full screen view, but then it hover appears when you scroll to the left, and just the UI on it is like they have a whole team of they're kind of like documenting their whole journey. They have a huge YouTube channel. They're always adding on features. They have customizations for the browsers. Mine's a bunch of different colors. So I
Yeah.
think you would love that.
I'm
But what
excited.
you
Yeah.
can do, yeah, but what you can do is you can set Perplexity
Yeah.
default as your default search engine on Arc.
That's
So, and
amazing.
I don't think Chrome can do that. But the
No.
biggest unlock for that is that you can use, and it'll aggregate and source pull too. So it's kind of like a Google search. And I think that's that perfect kind of runway that eases the friction from people transitioning from Google search because you still have the credibility and the backlinks,
Yeah.
while also kind of getting into more of a chat like interface and like approaching it with that mindset.
I love that. I like the duality of that because I don't think I'll ever fully give up Google. Like there's certainly like especially location based stuff. I'm like, hey, find, a kid friendly restaurant near me. I'm typically going to Google and Yelp and TikTok for that. I'm not going to go to ChatGPT for that yet. But I
Hmm.
think I don't think I'll ever be solitary in one tool. I think there's value in so many different ones, and it'll continue to evolve.
Yeah, and that's what it is for me is I'm trying to have a better detachment from like past habits and past softwares, past tools. Because like you said, they change so much.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest like desirable attribute, the biggest advantage is being flexible and being comfortable with that uncomfortable process of like the friction of starting something new or transitioning from it. Because once you kind of get stuck in your habits, like that's the moment that I'm not want to say like passed up, but then you just become so much slower to adapt changes to trends and things like that. But kind of like branching off of like trends and like what are some things that like really excite you? I know there's a bunch of different ones. Like for me, I've been really enjoying trying quad, and keep in mind like the whole reason I like loved your content and wanted to follow you and talk to you is because like I love learning about this stuff, and I'm a big believer that a lot of people feel the same way. It's kind of like this general like underlying anxiety that because I go to a
Yeah.
ton of like events and networking and stuff, and the people that haven't gotten started to use it, or it's just kind of like one of these things where they feel like everyone around them is using it and not really sharing like any type of secrets. I don't think there are any secrets. But it's kind of like
Yeah.
the general perception of that. But what are some things that you are like excited about or play around with? Personally, I'm really diving into Claude right now.
But oh,
Um,
Claude, yeah.
yeah, they have their artifacts feature, and it's all available in their free plans. So I have GPT 4.0, always loving that. But I mean, Claude and their artifacts, it kind of like trained itself on past data, it can remember conversations. It's all in the free version.
That's awesome.
So like, yeah, what's sort of the long-winded answer of like what's got you excited? What are some things that you like
Yeah.
playing around with nowadays?
Yeah. And to just to hit on your point from the folks who feel like intimidated by the fact that other people are moving forward, like I think that's part of the reason why it's important for creators like us to post and share. And I think that's why I really appreciate folks like Jasmine Alik and Rory Flynn and Drew Bruckner, because they, again, it's not scary and it doesn't have to be. And I think that's like the biggest thing I want people to take away is that we've done a disservice in calling it prompt engineering, because that sounds like you have to have an engineering degree to do it. Like prompt engineering sounds very intimidating. All it is
Hmm.
asking questions. Like that's it. You're just asking good questions and providing good information. So I think the more that we can share that with people, the more people feel comfortable getting up to speed on it. But
Hmm.
I would say the things that I'm exploring and excited about right now, I have a couple. I am learning Python so that I can hopefully build an app myself. And I'm using Claude to do that. I actually have like I paid for Claude and I've maxed it out because like I don't know crap about development and programming. And so I'm like, listen, buddy, you're really going to have to walk me through this on a basic level. But it's amazing because I feel like what probably would have taken me a year, I've done in like a month. And when I run into coding errors, I can copy and paste the code, send it to Claude and be like, hey, I'm getting this error. And it's like, oh, I see where that error is. Like this, and it explains it. And it's like, hey, this is the problem. Try like remove this, this, and this, paste it back in, and you should be good to go. And so it's like this working session with,
Uh-huh.
in a language that I don't even understand. So that feels really exciting to me. Um, I love Gemini because to your point about like saving chat history, I really leverage that a lot, especially like if I have an
Hmm.
idea for something, I'll go plug it in and then I might go research it later. I love that Gemini can export your chats directly to a Google document because it's connected to Google. And so that for
Yeah.
me is amazing. Maybe not enough to use Gemini as my main like hub. Like I do prefer ChatGPT or Claude more right now.
Hmm.
And then the other thing I've been exploring a lot is video. So I've been trying to mess around with like taking an image and like an example I'm really struggling with. So like I need to do some more work on this is like a coffee cup with steam rising from it, right? Very aesthetic, very cute.
Hmm.
And so I've got that image and it's beautiful. But when I actually plug it into Runway or Luma AI, I'm having such a hard time like getting those videos to look natural. Like instead of like steam gently rising from the coffee cup, it looks like steam being blasted in or like an explosion
Hmm.
of steam. And so in a way, those challenges excite me because it's something new and difficult to learn. And then I can get over that hump and hopefully teach other people how to do it easily.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really cool. Especially the whole coding thing. I
Yes.
know that's like because I think a lot of people have the conception that like you have to know something really well in order to be able to use it the most effectively.
Hmm.
And the reality is, if you're it's it's like using a computer versus knowing how it works, right? Like if you want to, there's people that go in and build their own PCs and their own custom devices, but they don't actually know how all the wires, the gears, the internal functions, they work.
Right.
So I think there's kind of like finding that line. And when it comes to something I really like value your opinion on is like when it comes to the creative parts of it, like I see all the time posts where like, okay, I made this AI generated image using this prompt and I took it into Runway and then I did these other 3D rendering software and it creates like an output. To me, that's like cool, but how can you kind of bridge the gap between like because for me, if I see a really fascinating, genuine like piece of art, I'm just like, what? The reason I appreciate it is because it took so long for them to do. Like
Hmm.
I forget the name. Oh, damn. Thomas Frank, he has this story about like anything digitally created, and he talked about this with his whole like YouTube library and all the tutorials he did on this software that's like now just axed. So it's like these hundreds of hours of tutorials, and he goes like he got asked questions like, how do you cope with that? It's like, well, there's a story, and I'm going to butcher the name, but it's like the story of these like Chinese table makers, and they go in and intricately lay like single grains of sand onto these tables, and then it takes them upwards of 6 months working 10 hours a day, whatever, to make this beautiful little table thing. And they'll do it, and they'll have a little ceremony that lasts 30 minutes, and then they'll brush it off afterwards. And so
Wow.
I kind of approach digital creation the same way. Um, you do it for the art of it and the appreciation afterwards and the acknowledgement that so much went into it. And for me, when I see like a super process driven AI creation, whether it starts with this software and then go to this one, it's like to me I don't get that same sort of validation. So where do you see the biggest value in using those tools to still create something that's meaningful but kind of isn't just like surface level like that? Like where do you think the
Mm.
actual meaning comes from like that?
I think there's so much in here that we could like, there's so many avenues that we could go down. But yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
live in this world that is driven by dopamine, right? And it's the
Mm-hmm.
attention economy, as Gary Vee says, and it's so true. But we have an attention span that lasts 8 seconds, and so it's no surprise to me because I'm guilty of it too. That when I can create this beautiful piece of artwork, like stunning piece of artwork in 8 seconds, like I get that dopamine hit, and I want more and more and more. But it is extremely
Mm-hmm.
different than the work that goes into like I love painting and I love illustration. Like
Mm-hmm.
an oil painting, for example, takes months because especially if it's a big one, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a different kind of dopamine. And I think it's really important to be aware of that. I don't think it's going anywhere. Just like unfortunately or fortunately, social media is not going anywhere. Like that is the way of the world. And I think the more that we can, especially for the younger generations, remind them that this is just a facet of your life. You don't live on the internet. Like you need to go outside and have those real experiences and try art, like, and maybe you'll never do art physically. That's okay. And maybe you're going to be this beautiful AI image creator. That's fine. I think as long as we have purpose within ourselves and that fulfills something within us, then that's really all that matters. Because what the world thinks, or if it's like the internet could go down tomorrow, right? The meteor
Mm-hmm.
could come. And I think it's really important to remember, like, you get one life. You should enjoy it while you're here. And if that's creating images online, amazing. And if it's not, make sure you don't waste all of your time doing that because it's very addictive.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think there's truth in it. I don't think what you're saying about can something be a masterpiece? I don't know. I know philosophically, I have no idea if it's made digitally, but I do think that um, as long as we're focused on like I think that our generation too is so caught up in legacy. Like, am I going to be remembered 3 generations from now? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to just kind of think about like it doesn't. I'm not going to be worried about like the future. I'm not worried about what's going on in 3 generations from now. I want to make sure like while I'm here, I love what I'm doing and I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind to the people around me and helpful to the people around me. And if they don't say my name in 3 generations, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think I very much feel the same way. I think it's you worry too much about the future, you kind of take yourself out of the present. And I think we're gonna get to a point, and when to kind of like branch that back in with AI, I think we're gonna get to a point where you kind of get that appreciation and association. So like you start to see it's gonna become more common knowledge to as to what the inputs are that create the outputs. Because right now, I think a lot of the mysticism is around like we don't know what this is at all. So like for example, like maybe in 10 years, someone will the common person will have more of a accurate gauge on how much effort or how much knowledge goes into creating something that's using AI. Like if you see like a very rudimentary image, or like okay, that didn't take a whole lot of prompt engineering, but if you see something that's different or like involves all these complex things, like wow, like that had to take a lot of engineering and time and roughly changing the prompt to do these things or integrating it into all these different softwares. So there'll start to be more of a genuine appreciation the same way there was like, I'm trying to think of like an analogy, but like
It's like
someone from, yeah, go ahead.
any of the great artists, right? Like Da Vinci and oh my gosh, anyone. A lot of their art wasn't created until they were gone, or it wasn't appreciated until they had long passed.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I
And
think it's not dissimilar. Like we're in the guinea pig stage right now with AI. Like what we learn in our generation probably is like this is like the testing phase. I kind of think of it as.
yeah, that's absolutely terrifying. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we're the mice in the cage.
yeah,
Just
it's that's what like it's literally. Sometimes I feel like literally living in a movie sometimes. Um,
same.
but yeah, another question I would ask was like, um, and you kind of mentioned it like on the course you take, some of your favorite influencers, but what are some other things you use to also the Midjourney magazine? But what are some other things that you do to kind of like keep in touch? I know a
Mm,
lot of it probably comes from the people you follow, which is I mean how I get my information.
mhm.
That's why I follow you, Sydney.
Oh, thank you.
But like, how do you kind of like stay on top of it? And I think to kind of like branch off of that, I think a lot of it is based around like what you're naturally curious with. So if you are enamored with something, you're gonna like by osmosis kind of engage more into it. So that's kind of a caveat. But what are some of your inputs that create the outputs?
So I think you're absolutely right. I think there are some creators who have inspired me and continue to inspire me because they make it, I think, authentic. They make that they kind of create a human connection to whatever it is. So my favorite creator who got me posting on LinkedIn, his name's Brandon Smithrick. But he posts about LinkedIn. He doesn't post about AI, but he's incredible. And I watched his journey, and that made me want to create my own. And then as far as education goes, I would say I use a lot of online learning. So I have Coursera, I use Skillshare, and then I love LinkedIn Learning. I'm a big fan of where I can see reviews and I can see like, oh, 40,000 people took this and gave it 5 stars. I think this is going to be a good course. It's probably going to be worth my time. Whereas some of the other platforms kind of beholden to like, I'm like committing your time before you know if it's good or not. And I don't love that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And then my mom, I mean, we've kind of hit on this. My mom really instilled, I'd say this is the best thing my mom ever taught me. Like I always grew up thinking like I could do anything. And by that, I mean, like if we were in the woods and a rock fell on your head and you needed me to like release the pressure, as long as there's a doctor on the phone with me telling me how to do it, I'm going to do it. Like nothing is rocket science. Like nothing can't be figured out. And so I think going into things with that mentality is like,
It's
there's
a
really
really
no,
good mindset.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's no experts anymore. Anybody can be an expert. Anyone can say, it's like world's best cup of coffee. Like anybody can be like the world's best LinkedIn engineer or prompt engineer. Like you can say whatever you want. And so really like that, there's a lot of permission in that. Like just go do it. And I think following people who are doing it. So Gary Vaynerchuk was like the person who really inspired me to get into marketing. He's kind of like, ship it, like just ship it, get it out there, just do the thing. And if you don't do the thing, like someone else is going to do it. And so I think that mentality is really healthy. And then I also, I love the Marketing Against the Grain podcast. I will like, that is a hill I will die on. It is one of the best. It's marketing and AI focused. And Kip,
Yes.
Kip and Kiernan are the two CMO and
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
another chief, another C-suite position at HubSpot. Those guys are incredible. They're so down to earth and they're so like willing to just do the work. They just kind of like
Yeah.
get out there and do it. And they have that good, like a really great saying too of like, I think this was Gary's, but he was on their podcast and he said, you become a worse driver the moment you take your hand off the wheel. So like you have to stay in the thing that you're doing in order to like be really good at it. Like you would think Gary, CEO of a number of companies at this point, probably wouldn't be doing his own marketing. He is like, he has help in other areas, but he's still like every day he's on every social media platform. He understands the importance of TikTok. He understands the importance of the, first 3 seconds of a video on Instagram. He's in it. And I think that's why he does so well. So many people, I think in bigger companies, as they get higher up, they lose track of like being like the finger on the pulse of like actually using the apps that they're building strategies for. So I think that's so important. And so I
Yeah.
see the value
I
in actually, doing the things.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think like another thing that comes to mind for that is like the knowing like the same principle applies to like stock investing, which was the example that came to mind, where it's like knowing the potential upsides versus the limited downsides. So if You're seeing the people that are innovating, and they're always, and if you see the people that are successful, they realize the high upsides that whether it's AI or marketing or staying involved in those parts, the single biggest needle movers from an effort standpoint, that's where they invest kind of their time and their efforts and their focus, rather than getting away from that and kind of hiring out stuff like that and not being as involved in it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's an
and
endless like amount of things we could be involved in. So choosing what to prioritize is so hard.
I know,
It's so
yeah.
hard.
So man, I think of like 10 things like while you're talking, and I get confused about which one I want to bring up because like
You're good.
really awesome. But like let's talk a little bit about you. Like how do you kind of like balance work and life? Let's kind of get to know Sydney a little bit.
Mm,
I know we talked about your daughter a little bit. You work at Deloitte. How do you what's yeah, just kind of give us the Sydney sales pitch.
okay, my Sydney sales pitch. This is not something I've practiced, so forgive me.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, you're fine.
yeah, I work for Deloitte now. I'm in digital marketing strategy. I do a lot of social media. Um, am I super passionate about social media? I'm not, but I love the work that I do at Deloitte because I get to work with people. So I do their life at Deloitte channels. So I get to showcase what it's like behind the scenes and really give people a little bit of a window into what a large organization looks like, because I think that can be really intimidating. So I guess that's a theme for me. I really like to break things down. I've always been a translator when it comes to helping different generations connect, and I guess I'm a peacemaker. So that's my Enneagram type. I like to bring peace and tranquility to situations. I have a 5.5-year-old, almost 6-year-old daughter. Her name is Avery. She's hilarious and feisty and giving me a run for my money this summer. I have a girlfriend who we live together. Her name is Alessandra. She's also a woman in tech. And we have a dog named Callie. In our free time, we like to be outside. I'm not like a camping kind of girl. Like I'm not like I want to go. Like I like air conditioning, but I love to be outside. So that's how I would say one of the best things for my mental health. This summer, I started taking a walk every day with my dog in a local nature preserve and just being in the trees and like not bringing podcasts. Like there's no headphones, no nothing. Just walk, just be in the woods for a little bit, and kind of to your point, like that disconnect of existing in the real world and being present, because so much of my work is online. And so I spend 8 to 10 hours a day on the computer, and that's not how I want to spend all of my time.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point. Yeah, and definitely feel the same thing. And it's kind of like I'm trying to find hobbies that you do just for the enjoyment of the thing, right, and just the
Yeah.
appreciation of like being in the moment. Like I want to start doing pickleball. I have to get
Yes.
over that fear of it because I'm almost afraid to start because I think it's one of those things where it's like I'm just gonna love it so much where it's just gonna like change my entire career path and like okay I'm doing this 4 hours a day now, like there's no alternative.
Well, you know what
Um,
they say? They say usually the thing that you're afraid of, you need to go like running towards. So
yeah,
sounds like you have
yeah,
your task. I
yeah. I'm
love
afraid
pickleball.
of.
My girlfriend and I play pickleball all the time. She's
Oh,
like
really?
she used to be a professional tennis player, and I'm terrible. But it's one of those sports that
Oh
like
my God.
you can be phenomenal or you can be terrible, and you can still participate.
Yeah.
We have like a really cool pickleball thing here in Charlotte where it's like a bar for pickleball, and so you can drink, you
Uh-huh.
can play pickleball, you can just hang out. It's so fun.
Dude. Oh my
But
God. You
you
guys are
could
doing
like
it right over there.
yeah, you can just go like play with friends at a local park. I mean, most of the tennis courts will work for that. And so kind of like low stakes.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty competitive though, so I don't want to like bring my like yeah, I don't know. Well, I got invited to they have a YMCA close by here,
Yeah, with the
and
Y.
but it's like a 60 and older group, and I'm like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be that guy out there like beating
Honestly,
up
though,
on people.
they're probably going to smoke you. I'm not going to lie
I
here.
know.
My
That's what I was
uncle's
gonna say. Yeah.
80, 83, and he is a beast at pickleball. Like he could like, wipe the floor with any of us, even Alessandra. Like don't make any assumptions because they are probably really good.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, so quick tangent, we'll get back. But like,
Yeah.
I meet with this guy, I get coffee with him every week. His name's Bill, and he's like, I think he's mid 70s. But this guy, he goes hard in pickleball.
Love that.
Like his wife made him wear like a like this plastic like brain protecting hat because he walked in one time and was like, yeah, I took a little shot to the head, went a little bit too hard, ran to the bar, and then the other time he ran to the middle line, had a huge bruise on his leg. Um,
Wow, yeah, he's
but
amazing. I would love to watch him play.
yeah, dude, I haven't watched him play. I need to get involved in it.
There you go. Yeah,
But
start just to watch. I
all
love
right,
it. You got to do it.
well,
I'm holding you accountable. Before the end of this year, you're
damn
doing
it.
it.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna start getting cold here soon too, so we can just do it indoors.
Yeah.
So, anyway, keep me accountable on that, but I appreciate that. But how would you say kind of being like a mother has like impacted you? I know that's a little bit
No.
more
There's no
introspective, but what would you say about that?
nothing off limits. I think that parenting is the hardest thing on the planet. I only have one, and I'm really lucky. I share custody of her with my ex, and he's an amazing dad. He's so good. So I only have her 50% of the time, and I still think it's like the hardest job in the world, just because I treat her like I would want to be treated. It's also like the most amazing experience. There's this poem I read recently, and it was like, because I think all of our moms have said to us, like, if you have a daughter, there's going to be payback. And like, that was like supposed to be fear inducing. And that's true. Absolutely. But there's also been like this really beautiful thing of like being able to see what I deserve because I see her innocence and I'm like, oh, like it's oftentimes hard for me to set boundaries for myself, especially with like doctors or, bosses or people that are older than me because I was raised to believe like, oh, I have to trust you. You're right. And now as I see her exist on the in the world, I'm like, oh no, like it's so much easier to see what she deserves, like, and almost use her as a muse for myself. So she's taught me a lot, as far as like parenting her but also parenting myself a little bit. And I feel really lucky because my mom and I, we really butted heads, which I think a lot of moms and daughters do for a lot of my young life. And having my daughter and bringing her into the world has really like healed our relationship in a big way. So my mom's like a huge part of our life now, and my mom loves hanging out with her, and I love a break. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win
Yeah.
for everybody.
No, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think like that's always like personally, it's something I'm always kind of like leaning into is like when you see someone online that you like actually enjoy their content and you see like, okay, like they have a family too, and they can kind of like manage both sides of that. And we kind of talked about that. We kind of talked about too. You never really know how people are until you interact with them.
Yeah.
But I think a big thing too is that people sometimes when I reach out to people, I'm talking to them for the first time. Like they really wear their ability to. They take if you compliment them on like their work life balance, not their work life balance, but their ability to have a family and be who they are outside of work, as opposed to just their career success. Like they wear that like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And like consciously, like as I kind of grow into a career and I kind of take all these inputs, I'm like, okay, like who are the people that I want to follow that kind of embody those mindsets that I want to be like. They seem very fulfilled in their careers, but they're not at the expense of their own personal happiness and their mental health and so forth. But like for you, given that you've had that kind of priority shift and the perspective shift, like what does an ideal day in the life look like for you? I know. Have you ever heard of Ali Abdal?
I don't know. Doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, so he's a YouTuber, but he's big on creating a lifestyle and kind of career for yourself where you can create like your ideal schedule.
Mm.
And he has this exercise, like I have this exercise, like I made a separate Gmail account with a separate Google Calendar, and you fill in the events hypothetically. Like this is if money were an object, how would I be spending like my ideal day, like my time? What energizes me the most at what times of day? And that also like allow me to pursue fulfillment and lead me towards what a perfect day would look like. So it's basically to kind of
Mm.
have that metric of what you're working towards, because I get so detached like in the day to day, like okay, I need to get this done, this done, this done, and you don't really detach from that and see like the bigger purpose it's all serving. And also like if I had my choice, like how much of this that I'm doing now is just a sacrifice for a payoff at a later date that may or may not come. So it kind of like helps put that in perspective a little bit. But
Yeah.
what do you think, like off the cuff, like what would that look like kind of for you? And it might change, but right now,
Yeah.
what sounds like a perfect day for you between work and family and fulfillment and maybe pickleball or whatever?
Yeah. Well, if I had the dream scenario, that's easy. So I would have a full-time nanny that would help with drop, like just kind of like those, like, again, it's like what AI does. It like kind of takes off like the useless tasks. Like she or he could do drop off and pick up for school. I would go to a coffee shop and work for the first 2 hours. I love the accountability of working around other people and like the coffee shop
Mm,
environment and just breaking away
yes.
from the office. And I would have no meetings, like zero meetings, just time to be focused and do creative work. And then I would have time to cook dinner. Like I love cooking. I think cooking is also an art, and there's some dopamine in it for me of just uninterrupted time though. It can't be if my child's here because then she's just going to want to, make a mess and have me look at her do a dance 60 times. So it has to be like uninterrupted cooking time, and then a family dinner with some wine, walk outside, and yeah, go to bed. And so like early, and just that would be a perfect day. But I think one of the things that helped me to create more days like this, which like none of them really go according to plan, but and I don't have a chef or a nanny, but one of the things that really helped me early in my career was seeing leaders balance their work life balance. And they did that by normalizing, like, I had one boss, her name was Lisa. She's incredible. And she would every once in a while leave at like 2:30 or 2 o'clock. And she'd be like, hey, I'm going to my daughter's softball game. Or hey, I'm going to volunteer for my son's football game at this concession stand. Like, you're doing great. Like, also, like, if you can wrap up early today and get out of here, like, please feel free. And so it was that normalization. And like, she was the same woman who walked into a boardroom full of 9 men and held her own. She was incredible. She was so smart. She was so like, she just had this composure to her, and that I hadn't seen a lot. I've seen a lot of women in HR, like really high anxiety and anxious and, stressed out and feeling like they need to satisfy everyone's needs. And so being able to learn from her and her unapologetic balance was what told me, like, because I need to see things to believe them, like, in a way. And so it told me that it was okay to do that. And now I am really an advocate of doing that for my team and like the people that I work with. And it's not just parenting. It's also like, I have, ADHD, and I have some symptoms of like kind of on the autism spectrum where I can be really overwhelmed by noise. And in particular, if there's a lot of different noises at once that I'm not in control over. So an example from a conference I was at was, we had a conference all day. We were in this like one room with 35 people. They were showing a video at over lunch. People were eating, they were having conversations. There was a video going in the background, and there was music coming from the speakers in the room. And I was just like I was starting to like really lose it. And I looked at my team and I just said, hey guys, I'm having a really hard time with all this noise. I'm going to take my lunch and I'm going to eat outside. It has nothing to do with what's going on here. I can't handle all this excess noise. It's really making me anxious. And so I made sure to vocalize that. And everybody was like, or there was at least one or two people that were like, I'm having the same experience. Can I come sit with you? And I was like, absolutely. But I think it's really, really so important for people to tell the truth when they're struggling, because nobody's perfect and nobody needs to be perfect. That's not our job. And those kind of accommodations are, I mean, what I think we need to exist as human beings. And so that was like probably the most life-changing thing for me in my career. And is seeing people who did that well and now being able to implement that in my life. And so I think it's just really, really important to tell the truth and tell the messy truth. Don't be afraid.
Yeah,
Like,
I love that analysis too. It's, you're going through your day. It's like such a like a scientific analysis. It's like, yeah, I get dopamine from this and have this creative time. So, I think like what I think you have a very good sort of like finger on the pulse. Self awareness, like I said, I would call it, is like how what you do makes you feel and how to create more of that. And I think that's like a superpower, because people, I even see it in myself. Like self awareness is honestly, like it has to be one of the biggest advantages, because if you know how to act according to your core values, what you actually want to happen, if you know yourself really well, it's a lot easier to be consistent with that and end up getting what you actually want rather than what other people acting according to like what other people do. And
yeah,
I've seen that before too. And like I'm super guilty of my of what of like the inputs and opinions of others, like actually changing my own mindset. And I didn't was doing it without realizing it. So like whether it's work or the actions I would take, it's like you want to be doing what's normal all the time. And I
Mhm.
think it's really refreshing and energizing to see someone who's like, I don't give a shit about what anyone else thinks, in a good way,
Yeah.
and is acting
It'll be
according to
scary.
their, yeah, it's like following their own compass. And that's kind of
Yeah.
a really cliche term, but it's not easy to do unless you're really kind of familiar with what's going on under the hood. But you kind of
Yeah.
touched on your past experience there, but what did you learn from HR that
Mhm.
kind of, because that seems like, and I've had a couple interviews. Like I interviewed Lacey Picasso, who's a creative director, entrepreneur here in Columbus, an absolute like rock star. But she had this very sort of contrasting, and I see it a lot in successful people, is that they have like this contrasting role, like somewhere in their story. Like she took a sales job and she was always in creative business ownership, and she took a regional sales job for like 2 years. It's like, I really got, in touch with product, learning how to communicate, do all these things. And I know it's one of those things like you can only kind of connect the dots looking backwards. So maybe you didn't intend to get into that role in the beginning. And then it's like, okay, well, looking back on that, I can see why that makes me who I am and who I'm successful for today. But what did you learn kind of from that chapter, and what do you value? What value did you take from that?
Yeah. I actually I really loved the HR world. And I think it had a lot to do with the company I worked for. It was a global manufacturing company. It was named SPX at the time. Now it's SPX Corporation. And I never thought I would enjoy a manufacturing company, but it was incredible. So I worked in the corporate headquarters. The HR team was 40 people. And at that time, that was like 2010. At that time, everybody worked in the office 5 days a week. There was no remote work that didn't exist then. So
Mm-hmm.
it was normal and it was fine, and it was lovely to get to work around all of those people, because as a young person, I was so hungry for wisdom and sage and experience that I didn't have. And I needed to be able to see examples like I can copy anything, right? Like you show me how to do something once, I can absolutely do it, but it takes so much longer to create it from scratch. So I was just really hungry for information. And I think the value in HR is not only like the relationship building and being able to help people, but I think there was something especially that was helpful in marketing, which is understanding the legal component of things, like the importance of compliance, the importance of like even things like the attention to detail with paperwork when you're generating someone's offer letter or their severance agreement. One small date could change, the cost of what we pay them, like in their severance agreement, from 6 weeks to 6 months. And so it's really like I learned the value of attention to detail and thinking about things from a legal perspective that I've taken with me now to marketing, because there's so much that I think most social media managers for smaller businesses don't consider. Like you can't use unlicensed music on your reel if you're a business, because there's a potential for you to benefit financially from that video. And if you didn't pay Eminem or for that music license, then you could be liable for a lot of money, like a lot of money. And so that's been really helpful. And then I would say, looking back, I think the biggest lesson I kind of took and why I'm not in HR anymore was I didn't feel like I could be myself at work. We've talked a lot about authenticity during this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in HR, I very much felt like I could not be my authentic self. I kind of had to be the mother hen for 500 people that worked in my office.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of the enforcer of the rules. And when push came to shove and someone was going to get fired or put on a performance plan or laid off, that came down to me. And I didn't like being someone that people couldn't trust. I don't think that isn't true for all of HR, but for me to live in a way that feels genuine and feels true, I couldn't be in that role anymore.
No, that's really cool. I think there's, like I said, you can only kind of connect the dots looking backwards, like
Yeah.
especially when you're probably at a phase of life where it's like, okay, maybe I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And then, but when you're in the moment, it's so much harder to value where you are and what it's teaching you. So
Yeah.
like I worked at an agency, a design agency, for 6 months after graduating. and I just graduated last spring. So
You did?
it's yeah,
Congratulations. Oh my gosh.
thanks. Yeah. But after that 6 months after graduation was just like the basically like design work,
Yeah.
and over Black Friday it was in uh, it's a apparel company, so there was an e-commerce store,
Yeah.
and we spent part time. I spent part time. It was optional overtime at our distribution facility over Black Friday. So I was literally like in a warehouse, like loading boxes and doing manual labor, and I was like, dude, like this is not what I
This
want to
is not
like.
it.
Literally, like this is yeah. And it's like you kind of learn to. It's just like super. I don't want to say dramatic, but have you ever read Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning?
Mm-mm. I haven't. I
But
need
he
to read it.
was, yeah, but you've heard of it. It's
Mhm.
he's a Holocaust survivor, and like that whole perspective on like you can get enjoyment out of doing anything. Like you don't actually need anything outside of like your body and your mind that can reason to be happy. Um, and Ryan Holiday touches on a lot of the same stuff with stoicism and all that, but it's like that, like having a perspective like that's what I'm trying to take away from like doing hard things rather than
Yeah.
it being okay, like this is existential. Because dude, like literally that job was if you could write like everything that could go badly in a job, like had no Wi-Fi, can't listen to music,
Oh my
um,
gosh.
dark, freezing cold boxes. Um, yeah, I was
I
like,
think I feel like that's so true. Like same with my like early career. Like I tried a number of things before I landed in HR, but I think it's
mm,
there's something so valuable about figuring out. It's just as important to figure out what you don't like as it is to
mm,
figure out what you do like. And then as
yeah.
long as you keep moving in the direction of what you do like, then that's like really all you can do.
Mm.
And like you wouldn't know that if you didn't have those kind of bad experiences.
Right. Yeah, that's what, and this Ali Abdal again, but he says like there's no failures, there's only like experience points. So
Yeah.
it's a success because you learned what not to do. And I know it's like that with literally anything in life. It's just you have to change your mind because like I don't know if we're all raised on the sense that you want to you have to get everything right. It's like anything that's not the ideal outcome or what you exactly intended is just like it's scary. 'Cause I think that's what's in
Yeah.
our nature.
I agree
But
with that. And the purpose, I'm not even sure what the word would be, but like that purpose destiny is like so crippling sometimes. It's like, well, I mean, I'm 36 and it's like, have I found my purpose? Certainly not. Have I found joy and happiness? Yes. And is this the job I'll have forever? Probably not. Like I'm going to keep moving in the direction of like what I enjoy doing and what I like doing and might,
mhm.
pivot careers again. Who knows?
Yeah, well, that's
And
a
that's
really healthy
okay.
mindset. That's a
Yeah.
really healthy mindset, like detaching from it and not feeling like because it's almost like a virtue signal when people ask you like, are you living your dream life right now? It's like I don't know, like
Yeah.
what compared to what, like I'm
I'm not on
just
a
kind of like
yacht. Yeah. In the
I know,
Mykonos. Like,
yeah,
I guess.
yeah, like I'm feeling my way forward through life. So I always say, but
Hmm.
to wrap up, like where can people go follow you, learn more about you?
Yeah.
Where should people go?
Please go to LinkedIn. Yeah, Sydney Stern Miller on LinkedIn. That's going to be the place you can find me the most. And then from there, I've got a website, sydneysternmiller.com, and then I've got an AI image generation Instagram if you want to check it out. But it's all linked on there.